Kang. I've missed that, so I've missed you so. I know you miss me blind. Ein. Hello, guys. Welcome back to Pencil to Pencil. I know you've been remiss without the boys of summer, aka the boys of fall, on your video scope. That's what I call this internet box that we all live in. Let me tell you what's going to happen here. I am going to introduce myself and my co-conspirators. Then we're going to have a fantastic talk across time and space.
Literally.
Literally. Guys, I'll start it off. My name is Jamar Nicholas. I am a cartoonist in good standing. I wear many hats, as you may know. This is my #1 hat. I am the author, illustrator, and creator of Leon the Extraordinary, a series at Scholastic underneath the graphics imprint. I had a really fantastic New York Comic-Con experience. Maybe I'll tell you about it. My newest book in the series, Leon, Worst Friends Forever, is in stores now. Cop it. Why don't you? That's right. I would be remiss if I did not introduce you to the man who walks the land, the Bill Bixby of webcomics, walking up side of the road with a melodic piano tinkle behind
duffel bag.
Duffel bag McGillicuddy. We know him as the Johnny Appleseed of webcomics.
Duffel bags.
This is Stone Cold Steve Conley. What's up, Steve Conley?
Gentlemen, I missed you so much. It's so good to see you. I saw some photos from New York Comic Con. That was amazing. I want to hear all about it. My name is Steve Conley. You may know me from the webcomic The Middle Age, which you can find at middleagecomic.com. It's on the Webtoons. It's on the Tapas. It's on the Go Comics.
Yes.
I also make role-playing game stuff. I just came back from Gamehole Con.
My favorite hole.
Insert jokes here. Fantastic event. But I think I'd be remiss and a little jet-lagged if I did not introduce the Tower of Power, the man of the hour, the Kirby Crackle to our Snap and Pop, Mr. Mike Manley.
Hello,
Mike
everyone.
Manley. What up, Mike?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I am a over 40-year veteran of comics and illustration and animation, and I currently draw Judge Parker and the Phantom. And I've been
not every day, right? Not that would be crazy if you did that every day.
This is to be honest, it's a 7-day-a-week job drawing your childhood. So, in fact, it's funny because last week I went and I shipped something. Somebody bought some. I sold some art recently, and I went to the local UPS store, and when I took the artwork out, the people were like, "Wow!"
They're like Aruga,
right? Yeah, because I mean, usually people come in and they're mailing, sweaters and socks and cookies or something. And then when we started talking, they were just, again, young people just the right age that they like, you worked on Samurai Jack? Man, that was my childhood. So I get that weekly now. It's funny. It's like for a long time, I didn't get that. But now it seems like it's just like the right demographic that the people, when they say, oh, yeah, I watched that, I read that, I bought that, I collected that. So,
well, it's crazy to think that the millennials, and I remember for a long time, millennial was like the hang tag that everybody put not your generation on, which was kind of unfair. Because millennials are like almost in their 40s at this point, right? So think about it. But it's coming back around, and people who grew up in the late 90s, it's kind of they're connecting the old stuff like that, or even the early aughts is starting to come back up.
Right. The people that were watching stuff in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's long enough now that if you watched Powerpuff Girls in 2000 or Samurai Jack 2000, it's 20 years. So that's hit the nostalgia mark. right?
Bing bong.
You know, and so it's very interesting because I find that now you have multiple layers of, as your career goes on, there's the strata of your career or my career, right? Doing different things. And then now there's, with that, are stratas of people, of fans who are like, you know, were buying stuff in 1984 or born in 1984.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you're born in the mid 80s. You started watching cartoons in the early 90s. So by 2000, you know, you're 15, 16 years old, 20 years old. It's very interesting because there's this a lot of, like I said, a lot of strata
Mm-hmm.
to fandom now.
And also to think about that there are really strong adult generations of Pokemon fans, right? Like they're
I know some people in their mid-20s who were really big into Pokemon, Powerpuff Girls, all that stuff, and now they're like in their mid-20s. They're doctors and lawyers and Indian chiefs, and they're making good money. And it's interesting to see some of them now, what they get into as they get older, doing cosplay and all kinds of stuff. So it's very interesting.
Yeah. There's a couple of elephants in the room. There's a couple of lumps behind the curtains in the room. First elephant in the room is that we have been gone for a nice chunk of time. I don't know how that happened, but like one of the things is that I've been on tour for my newest book. Thank you. I wasn't fishing.
You've
Fish
been
away.
destroying hotel rooms across the nation.
Yeah, I think they give me an electric guitar just to smash on things. And also, there was a giant storm. Perhaps you heard of it a couple of weeks ago. That really just
release of
giant storm.
Leon, worst friends forever.
That's the butterfly effect, right? Sorry about that. And and we've been dealing with all that stuff in different ways. So I'm just really glad that we're back live. Thank you guys for tuning back in. I also know that the algorithm makes you think that we stopped doing this because we were here a week or two.
We were just frozen.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I'm really glad to be back. Oh, the chat is starting to react to, what up, Joseph? Joseph's like, Digimon. Yo, Digimon, digital monsters. Digimon is the champions. Yes, I remember all that stuff. And it's kind of coming back around to that age group, like the Pokemon generation, like begat other cartoons. Kind of like, we didn't talk about this yet, but it's interesting to think about this like collectible monsters game. It was such a smash. It made clones of itself. Like Digimon was huge. Metabots was huge.
Oh, wow.
I love Metabots. It's one of my favorite cartoons. But yes, Joseph, exactly.
Was it like Bionicle? Was that part of that whole thing?
Was that kind of Lego stuff? Wasn't that Bionicle?
Yeah, because then that also, not too long after, Lego like had a huge resurgence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just that's all kind of part of this churn. Paul Pate, what up, Paul Pate? Paul Pate says my kids learn to read with Pokemon cards. Yo, it's wild. So, but yeah, this is just kind of where we're at in the world. What up, Tom Zoller? America's Tom Zoller checking in.
Speaking of, I guess I could show this.
Yeah, I saw Tom at New York Comic Con. What up, Tom? Hold on, I'm giving Mike the screen. What is this, Mike Manley?
So this is a card for one of the first Marvel series. I don't know if it says on there.
Oh, is that like the Marvel cards were giant in the 90s?
It says send directly to Paul Mounts on it. See who colored it? I don't know if you can see
it's a little bright, but yeah,
Wow.
that's bananas. So Mike, can you maybe explain that real quick? Because like for people who weren't there, that's how old we are.
So
how
these
the cards
were,
work.
Marvel was doing all those when everybody was doing cards. Marvel started doing cards. I think it was through Fleer at first, and they did several series. So what this is each. This is whoever was in the Fantastic Four at the time, and you would do one image, but then each one of these images would be a card.
It's great.
So
and they were kind of you had to kind of rule this out from the action, like there's going to be 3 on top.
Yeah, somewhere I probably have a layout for it.
That's fantastic. And then the collector would put them all together, right?
Right. So what would happen is the people would collect the packs to try to get all the cards, all the images.
That's banana bread.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
and then I also remember, like, this is also when all of a sudden my generation started getting money. Not like that, but like you had nerd money to burn, where I knew guys who were like getting the cards, and then like we're in our 20s now, and like, some of them have money from illicit means. Well, I won't talk about how you got money back then, but they were like, yo, why are you messing around buying packs of cards? You could buy a case. And people started like buying things in bulk. So you would buy a case of Marvel cards and then just break them all out. So you could get a whole set. You know what I mean?
And then they would insert like special cards. I did one series
like chases, right?
Where they would actually put original art in.
Sure.
Right. And it was Fleer and then Skybox. I think it was Skybox.
Skynet.
Yeah, and then one was like series is called Overpower, and they were like some were like foil. I mean, I did a whole bunch of them back in the day, and then DC started doing them. Yeah. Everybody was doing cards.
It was hot.
Yeah, and then I remember there was a lot of stores that opened up just to sell cards, like hockey cards and all kind. And then they all went poof, like within 6 months, everybody just like blew a gasket.
Those are vape shops now, Mike.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But you know what? Also, we didn't really touch on, which will be part of what we're talking about today, is while all this is going on, there's a really slow buildup of manga in the United States. And well, first it kind of was like anime, right? And all of us of a certain gray beard status wouldn't even we didn't call it that because it wasn't called anime yet, right? It was like Japanimation, you know what I mean? And before that, it was just Speed Racer, the dude with the eyes, you know what I mean? It just all started to just kind of like flow together.
I dated a girl briefly in the early 80s. I think I talked about this before, and she was part of a group that had somebody who lived in Japan, and they would send tapes, and then this club would dupe the tapes and make the translation with the little and that I remember she had like Captain Harlock with subtitles stuff back then. It still had the original voice track from Japan, but then they made their own subtitles.
Yeah, those were either subs or dubs.
Right.
Yeah. Sub. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was like 1980, 81, somewhere in there. So
earlier. Right?
Yeah. And then there was the first. What was that first? There was a magazine.
New Type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way back. Yeah. So it's. I mean, now it's the dominant form of. And in fact, last week I read that the top 5 movies in the cinema for the first time were all animated.
That's wild. That's really wild. I wouldn't have thought that, but it makes a lot of sense. And this kind of brings us to our topic tonight, you guys. I don't want to leave Juan back there. He's going to start growing moss if we leave him in the back too much longer. But speaking of Japan. And speaking of manga, we're transcontinental tonight, you guys.
Yeah.
We have Juan Albarran, and he'll probably kill me for how I murdered his name, as I got to get the flow together, who is joining us, you ready for this? All the way from Japan.
All the way from tomorrow.
Yeah, it's from tomorrow. So if you know, we're in the East Coast, so it's a 13-hour time difference. It is not, well, it was 9 a.m. in Japan. Now it's a little later. And Juan is a working mangaka in Japan, working on his own manga. And a lot of us are really, really interested in the Japanese studio system, how that is so much different than how we create comics in America. And Mike has known Juan for a little bit longer than I have, but I'm really excited to talk to him. Mike, do you want to kind of give a little plug for Juan, and we'll bring him in?
Well, you just kind of did. I mean, I guess we met not that long ago over Facebook, I believe it was, because he had seen some of our podcasts, and he sent me some brushes, which I still have to use, which I thought was great. We got to talking, and I thought, like you said, I've always been really interested in the differences in how comics are produced in Japan or Europe versus America. I mean, that's one of the thrusts of the podcast, is to try to illuminate and share the information. And the great thing about talking to Juan is that he worked in America, so he's aware of our system, and now living and working in Japan, it'll be really great to talk to him and to be able to compare working here, working there. And he's Spanish, so was Spanish working in America, and now he's Spanish living and working in Japan.
Yeah, you're stacking this Jenga pile up. That's
so I just think that's really fantastic, and I'm so glad he agreed to do this, and we're breaking the international dateline.
That's right. Right. I love it. All right. So without further ado, let me get my rendering tools together. We're not ready. We're getting ready to render. Please welcome to Pencil to Pencil our good friend, Juan Albarran. Ping!
Hi, guys.
Look, he's got smoke curling off of like Terminator.
Hello from the future. I just got my DeLorean, came, to Thursday. So things are nice today. You can be sure that you'll be okay at least until tomorrow. So after that,
that's so fantastic. We should have put some smoke effects on the screen. Your clothes, give them to me now.
Yeah.
Juan, thank you so much. I have to say, from my very limited Japanese, Ohayo gozaimasu.
Ohayo gozaimasu. Also, my limited Japanese, by the way. I just don't have time for it.
Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, Mimi says, no nuclear launch tomorrow. You can go to work. It's fine. So, let's just get it started. Juan, this is really interesting. I used to be a big manga reader, and then it just kind of like got out of control, where there just wound up being so much of it. You had to be very selective, or somebody had to kind of tell you about a series for you to get into it. And probably the only thing that I really like ingested, like I bit it and like chewed on it, was Bakuman. And the reason I love Bakuman was, and it was from the creators of Death Note. I never watched or read Death Note. I don't care about Death Note, but Bakuman connected to me because it was about two high school kids who wanted to be manga creators. And it was set in the real world, where they lived in Tokyo, and they went over to Shonen Jump and talked to the editors. And it was like a master class of how you make comics in Japan right there.
And it's really realistic. Now that I'm inside, I can tell you that, there's a lot of drama with the love story they have with the girl and all that. But
well, that
obviously, part, yeah. that's a manga for kids. Like, that's where you get the shonen genre or demographic. Mm-hmm. But how they portray how manga is made, how mangaka go to their the publishers, and try to get work, and how it's developed. And that's, as far as I know, like every magazine obviously does thing a little bit different. And I don't work for Shonen Jump, but I mean, it's pretty realistic. One thing I also liked about Bakuman is that they show really accurately, I think, how the mangaka feels. Like the pressure, the exhaustion, just this never ends. It's just like it's a race, that it's a marathon that instead of I don't know how many 40 kilometers, it's like 400 kilometers. It never ends. Like I've been doing this for 2.5 years now since our series started, and I don't see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel yet. And sometimes it's like I just want this to end. This is too much pressure. So yeah, I think Bakuman did a great job portraying the life of the mangaka, aside from the mechanics of how a magazine works from the inside and things like that.
And probably one of the most interesting things that people who are outside of the culture are just learning about, even though you make comics for a living, that's mind-blowing in its own right. But then to talk about in Japan is kind of like the studio setup, and you can please correct me if I'm off base, is that if your manga is picked up by a publisher and is popular, as that goes on, you may be gifted assistance from the publisher. So that's not really how it works. So maybe we'll just start there. Tell us, like, how is it supposed to work in Japan, and then what are you doing?
I work the typical system of a mangaka. When I got into the magazine, Morning Magazine, by the way, by Kodansha, they told me, we're going to treat you just like any of our other mangaka. Of course, you don't speak Japanese. That may change the workflow a little bit, but other than that, you're going to be just one other guy. So actually, me being from outside and not speaking Japanese is a little bit more work for them. Also a little bit more work for me, but the basic workflow is basically the same. So when I was hired, like we can get into that later if you want to, because I think it's part of the interest of the story. But I got a meeting, and just so you know, realize how things work here in Japan, I had a meeting with my 2 editors. One of them speaks a little bit Spanish, so that's why I'm able to communicate with them. Otherwise, I think it would be impossible, I think. And with a kind of an expert, like Kodansha Morning has just one guy that, among other things, what he does is to assist people that has a new series coming up. Like a mangaka that has no experience hiring assistants and getting into the flow, how the whole thing works, right? So this guy was in the meeting with my editors and me, and he said, okay, you need at least 3 assistants. This is how much you should pay minimum. I will take care of the recruitment. I will filter all the candidates that I get, and I'll send you what I think are the best, and we can discuss. After you hire the assistants, you start working with them. It's all remote, by the way. I don't have a studio where people come, because I don't even live in Tokyo. Like I live in the Fukuoka prefecture, so there's nobody that makes manga here. I mean, maybe hobbyists, but that's it. And after that, remotely, we can go to Discord, which is where I communicate with them, and I'll just monitor everything. And if you want me to teach them something, like, I don't know, like this guy got into share a screen with some of the 2 of my assistants at the beginning and watch how they worked. And the guy said, okay, you can be faster if you do this, this, and this. So he advised my assistants to be faster, to work more efficiently. Also, he asked me, how do you send me your Clip Studio file, typical file that you use to work. And then he sent a template back with some adjustments and recommendations to work faster, to work, and he gave me the reasons why he made those changes. So it's all thought out to make my life as easy as possible. So I have 3 assistants. They're all Japanese. At the beginning, I had 2 Japanese, 1 Spanish, because when I got the job, I actually lived in Barcelona, Spain, which is where I'm from. So the whole thing started, while I was working outside. And I'm actually the first one, they told me, the first mangaka living outside of Japan that Morning, the magazine, has ever worked for in 40 years. Wow. So they made some kind of exceptions, which I still don't understand. I mean, why me? Like, well, I mean, we'll talk about that, but about the appeal that has for them the fact that I'm a foreigner, which is, I think, the reason why they hire me, really. And so yeah, I was from there. I had a friend of mine that asked him to assist me in some of the things, and he worked for me for a year or so. And then when he decided to do some other manga by himself, I just hired another Japanese assistant. Now that I'm here, it's better for me to hire Japanese assistants for bank transfers, yen currency, dollar, euro difference, things like that, right? And also, Japanese assistants are the best. You just give them work, they do it, they don't bother you, they just give it back. They're pros. Like, they're actually people that their job for 20 years is to be a manga assistant. So they're 100% pros at doing this. So that's amazing, And yeah, I work with them remotely. Clip Studio, I don't know if you're aware, but Clip Studio Paint EX, the best version of it. They have a teamwork function, which is a bit of a cloud. If you've used it, you know how amazing it is you upload your work to a cloud, give access to people. It's like a Google Docs, basically. They can make changes to the pages, they do their work, they upload it, then you download it, and you have everything. You don't have to exchange any files, copy paste, you don't have to do any of that. And I distribute the work, I write instructions for all of them, a little bit like a short script, like page 1, panel 1, draw a building, blah, 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 whatever. And of course, in the sketch, I actually draw a fairly, clear sketch of what I want. If there's a perspective, I draw the perspective just to make sure that everything fits. Sometimes a photo reference, for them. Sometimes even like 3D models. Like at the beginning of the manga, the main protagonist is an old man that lives in rural Japan. For the house, I was really concerned about, okay, I have 3 people that have to draw the same house, and it has to look the same. How do I do this? So I went online and looked for and found a rural house, like 3D model of a house that you can put inside, and then they can draw over it and make sure that all the details match. But the configuration of the house is always the same, like the floor plan, so to speak. So I did that, and yeah, I just do. I mean, and I pay the assistants. Morning helped me find the assistants through this expert guy, but they're my staff. I pay them. What I pay them comes from the page rate they gave me. Morning gives me for to work, and yeah, it's my responsibility to manage the team. Morning only wants the chapter finished on time, and that's it. And everything else is my responsibility. They recommended 3, but if I'd said I don't want any, say, okay, are you able to deliver? Yes, go ahead. Do you want 5? Do you want to work less? If the manga you deliver is good, that's fine too. Like, they don't mess with me,
right,
when it comes to that. So yeah.
So why don't we? I find that very interesting. You sort of have like a agent / art director who knows, like a recruiter. It's like a guy who goes like, I know this team of assistants which is not actually dissimilar to some of the Spanish artists I know in Argentina who had professional assistants for years doing backgrounds and things like that.
Right.
And then he knows all these people, and he's like sort of like an art director trying to advise you how to, and like a coach, like, to save time, to be more efficient. I find that is actually something you don't have in America. And then maybe we should back up even a little bit further to start at the beginning of like how you decided to go to Japan, how you got to Japan, because you actually worked in America. You were working in American comics. So again, that's one of the things I find really interesting, is that you worked here in our system, and now you're working there in that system.
Okay, so I'll try to make a very long story as short as I can. But as far as assistants, one thing that you mentioned is that this guy is not so much of an art director. He's a person that knows like the technical side of things, like the specs the page needs to have, where to go find good assistants. Like it's not that he knows the assistants himself, but he can go and post like on message boards and things like that and recruit, like post we're looking for assistants for this new series, morning magazine. These are the conditions. And then he gets all the candidates. It's like a job posting kind of thing. And then he filters the ones that he thinks are good according to my requests. And then we decide, I think this is good. He's good at tracing, but this guy doesn't know perspective very well. So I would stay away from this guy. Like he would, talk to me like that. Later on, when I had to look for another assistant, I was comfortable enough to go and do it myself, like go to those message boards and look at, but at the beginning, like for a newbie that starts their own first series, that's, this guy's there for us to get help. As far as my story, I drew when I was a kid. I go very far back, but don't worry, I'll make it fast. I drew when I was a kid, and I wanted to go to art school. And my parents said, we're paying for education. They were really conservative when it comes to that. It's like, try to get a real job, So it's like, okay, I quit. So I stopped drawing for many years. Like when I say many years, I'm talking like 12, 15 years. Didn't read a comic, nothing.
Wow.
Decided to come back on my 30s, 32, 33, 2009. And I decided that that was going to be my thing. Like, it's not just a hobby. I'm going to, make my living as a cartoonist. And decided to go to art school in Barcelona. We have a Escola Joso, which is kind of like a Cuber school, but not so, not so big. It's just like a much smaller place, but basically they teach the same thing. And I said, I want to go there, learn comics at 30 something and try to become a professional. So I did that. During the second year, I realized that I was good at inking, and I tried to get my foot in the door in the business as an inker while I was having my day job. Like I had a day job normally, and then I would go to school on the weekends. So basically I found work as an inker really quickly, and my first job was DC. Like somebody didn't do their job, and I was sending samples through emails like all day long, and some editors like, okay, I need help. I need a firefighter to extinguish this fire that we have here, which is always the way it happens. So I went there, I did some Nightwing in the New 52 era, 2011, 2012 or something. But anyway, that led to me becoming a professional inker in 2013. I worked for 7 years for DC Comics, got as high as Justice League with Scott Snyder when the movie was out. Like, the only thing that I didn't do at DC that I would have liked to do is like the main Batman book. Other than that, basically I did all the characters and everything. Also Injustice based on the video game, which is with Tom Taylor, that sold pretty well. That's what I did most of the time, actually. And then Corona hit, and I'm not sure what was talked at the DC offices, but I know a lot of inkers lost their jobs at the time. Or temporarily they said, okay, pencilers, can you ink yourselves? And inkers, maybe we can find a job for you guys later. But at the time, I'm talking about March, April, May 2020, right. Everything stopped. If we rewind like a year before that, I realized that the job as an inker was like kind of dying down a little bit, that there was no future for me. If I wanted to have a career, I have to become a penciler and draw my own comics. So I started to think about that thing, right? And Corona hits, I lost my job. I don't know if forever, but maybe in 6 months, I would have started to work as an inker again. But I decided that was done, that I was not going to get any more jobs as an inker, that I was going to do the transition. And then I had some samples of me doing, for Marvel, characters, some Batman samples. Also, I started to send to everybody, and nobody, obviously, at that time, nobody was giving work, especially to a new guy like me. So I decided to go with Plan B, which is a plan that I had in my mind for a long time, because as a reader, I've always read more manga than American comics. I like it all. It's maybe 60% manga, 35% American comics, 5% European, like Tintin and things like that. And so I said, okay, the whole world stopped making comics except just one country, Japan. They never stopped making comics. And I had this dream forever that, it would be so cool after reading Bakuman and things like that, that it would be, amazing to try to work for Japan. But I thought the language, and I thought right, by the way, the language would be a very, a tall hurdle to get over. So I said, okay, I'm going to start as an assistant. Maybe I can find work right away, because I need to work right away. Like, it's not like I could wait 6 months to develop a new series, to get in touch with editors and see what happens. Like, no. I need to work now. I have bills to pay. I have to put food on my table, things like that. And so I did that. I started, researching online where to find jobs as an assistant. Posted something. 20 minutes later, after I got a job as an assistant. Amazing. Like, I found a mangaka that was a fan of DC comics, like Batman, like the characters, basically. And she was really excited to work with me, somebody that had 7 years of experience, even as an inker, which I don't think they know what it is here. Like, here it's mangaka or assistant. The inker, penciler thing, that the work is not distributed that way.
Right.
And I was in Spain at the time, by the way. I was in Barcelona. So I started working as an assistant. Now, aside from that, how did I came to Japan? Totally unrelated to this. When I was working as a mangaka, as a inker, I came to Japan to do a residency. So a friend of a friend invited me to be here in where I live now, to do a 2-week residence, artist in residence kind of thing. We'd do master classes and be at a, drawing on stage, or like a very, they treated me like a rock star, which I really wasn't. But anyway, during that, I met a woman who's now my wife. So I eventually moved here for personal reasons to be with my wife, But in the meantime, while I was waiting, the corona happened, and that's why I decided to go from working in Japan and America to working in Japan. So I worked 2 years as an assistant. During the second year, I realized the language was not the big barrier that I thought it was. The translator, automatic translation online is actually pretty good. So I said, you know what? While I work as an assistant, I'm going to write and draw my own one-shots. That's how you get in Japan. You don't get by drawing 4 pages of samples. You write a complete story, like 30-something, 40 pages, and then you send it to publishers, or you submit it to awards, contests. And if you win the contest, or if you get in touch with a editor that's interested in you, then they get in charge of you. Like I'm responsible for you now in this magazine. Let's try to develop you. Let's try to get something that I can show to my editor-in-chief. And if it gets accepted, maybe published or developed into a longer series. So I did that. Got the a 40-page one shot, got it translated, paid a translator, paid a letterer, so make sure everything was correct. I didn't make any Japanese language mistakes, and started to send that out. And I got an incredible reaction about that. Like, everybody responded. Like, I found all the websites online where every magazine had like a tab where you can go send your work here, right? From Spain. So I would send everything. People would kind of flip out. It's like, why am I getting something from a guy from Spain? Like, this has never happened before. And also the subject matter of the manga is actually very Japanese. Like, I know it's about a high school baseball manga tournament, very famous here, called Koshin Tournament. And it's very unique. It happens in Japan. It doesn't happen anywhere, outside of the world. And it was centered about that, and people were really surprised that somebody living in Barcelona knew about Koshin, and it was well researched and everything. And I got all kinds of responses. I got responses from, this is great, but this is a shoujo manga. My readers are 15-year-old girls, so I can do nothing with this. And then people that got like, this is great. It doesn't fit my magazine, but send me more, And eventually I actually got, in the end, 2 or 3 editors that's like, oh, this is cool. Like, let's try to do something. So I did 2 storyboards, nemos, they call them here. for a magazine, like a seinen magazine, which is young adult spirits. Then also for another one for shoujo manga called Hana to Yume, which one editor, he said, okay, this thing you're sending me, impossible to publish in my magazine, but it is cool that you're from Spain. I want to work with you. What can you bring, fresh? That's something that a Japanese mangaka cannot do. Just let's see it. So I started to work with him. And also another thing that I did is I asked all the mangaka that I work for. I ended up working for at least 10 mangakas. I said, like, I want to work for Japan. I want to do my own manga in Japan. Is it possible? What do you think? What advice can you give me? And yeah, they started responding, and some of them were like, I have no idea, but you gotta try these magazines with this style you're showing me, try this magazine and not the other. They all give me an advice. So I was doing that, and when I was getting close to my second year of working as an assistant, I get an email out of the blue from an editor of Morning Magazine saying that they were looking for an artist to draw a series called Matagi Gunner, which is the series that I'm drawing now, that if I was interested. And of course I said yes. Yes, but knowing that it was going to be really difficult, because remember, I've been doing like storyboards for other magazines. They were all rejected by everybody. Like, okay, here's like, yeah, not good enough. Try again, So I was thinking, okay, this is going to be the same thing. Later, I realized, I found out that one of the mangaka I was working for shared editor now with me, and the editor asked him, we're looking at a mangaka for this new series. Do you know anybody? He said, okay, this is going to sound crazy, but one of my assistants from Spain, and he told me that he wants to draw manga. It's like, you may want to, he's a good worker. He never fails a deadline, so you may want to contact him. So he recommended me, which is something that happens a lot here in Japan. Like, you can, most of the time, you can get a famous mangaka and you read about him, and the bio starts like, he was assistant of blah, 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 another famous name. And it's like, it's accepted that an assistant will, what they call here, graduate from being an assistant and move on. And that the mangaka that works for them kind of like helps them up a little bit, right? Like recommend them or something like that. And that's what happened to me. So they said, are you interested? I said, yes. They said, okay, we'll start doing, this is the basic story. We'll start doing, they explained what the manga was supposed to be about. Let's do character designs. That was November 2020. November 2021. And I thought spent one day, like I was working as an assistant on my free time, I would draw the character designs. So I drew one. It's like, oh, this is amazing. This is impossible that they refused. No. This is it. So I sent it like to Cartoony. Anyway, makes the long story short, 70 pages, 4 months later. I was still doing designs. Every Friday we would get and I'm not getting paid for it. Like, you don't get paid for that work. And they let me know, we're not going to be able to pay you for this. Only when the series starts and it gets published, then you get paid.
So no payment for development. You're still having to do assistant work.
Yes. Eventually they'll pay me. They paid me for that. But I think they didn't say this, because one thing they didn't say is you're hired or you're not hired or you're in a trial right now. They didn't say anything. They're just like more realistic, more cartoony,
right?
Angrier, happier, older.
Right. They're keeping you going by not giving you, like, telling you exactly what you're supposed to be, like where your role is. They just want to keep seeing more.
Yeah, no, and they were saying, like, sometimes they had suggestions, like Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino. Think about that. And it's like, okay, this is the old man. The main protagonist of my manga is an old man. So very, like, grumpy and everything. So they would give me that type of suggestions, and they would give me pointers in art style. But it felt like they didn't quite know what they wanted. It wasn't the kind of thing like, when I see it, I'll know it. Right. I haven't seen it yet. Right. But anyway, I was doing this and thinking, impossible. I'm not able to do what they want me to do. Like, I'm not able to deliver what they need. So I'm failing this thing. But I'm going to keep going. Like, this opportunity maybe never happens again for me. So I'm going to keep going until it ends. Maybe I'm just 60 years old still doing character designs for this damn thing and never get paid for it, but that's how it's going to be, you know? And February 2022, one day we go to a meeting. It's like, okay, here's the first storyboard of the manga, the first script, if you want to call it that. These are the two designs of the main two characters that I'd spent 4 months working on. Your first deadline is April 20 something. I'm like, and I completely freaked out because they didn't tell me you're hired, but it's like all the time I'm thinking like they're just doing a trial. Suddenly they give me a deadline. They give me a first chapter of 50 pages, and
that deadline was what, 2 months away?
Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
But he, you know, and then one thing that we discussed before is the schedule. My schedule is this. Morning Magazine is a weekly magazine, which means that every Thursday, today, a new magazine comes out. And out of the 4 weeks in the month, I publish 3, and 1 I don't publish. So it's 3 weeks in a row, 20 pages each, 3 deadlines in a row every month, and 1/4. Yeah, I know you're all doing this. That's what I do this. I've been doing this for 2.5 years right now, 2.5 years. So that's, and there's some people, I mean, those some, especially Shonen Jump, they do 4, like One Piece, he never stops, you know, unless he gets sick or something. And the old school guys were also like all week, but I think lately they've realized that they're killing the mangaka. So they do something a little, you know, easier. Also, the writer of my manga, which I found out later, is a salaryman, meaning he works at an office, has a day job. And so that's the reason why they said 3 and 1 instead of 4. Because he, you know, he cannot do, I mean, he just works on the weekends and he just writes a story of my manga, you know, for 2.5 years, just after work, which is insane to me. But anyway, so they said that. And when they gave me the deadline, they said, okay, meeting with the expert. Let's find you a team of assistants. And let's start with the storyboard. So I started with the storyboard. I wrote like the 50 pages of storyboard, sent it to them, countless and countless changes. It's just incredible. Changes and changes and changes. When that was approved, finally, then I started drawing. I got the assistants, and at first I would send 1 page, 2 pages. That was only chapter 1. Starting chapter 2, everything is in bulk. The whole storyboard sent, the whole like inks, so to speak, and send, and they give feedback over the whole thing. But chapter 1 was not like that. Chapter 1 was like, I sent 2 pages. Okay, a few days later, I sent 2 more pages. They gave me feedback on the pages that I sent 2 weeks ago. It's like, I need some pages. Like it was like really chaotic for me. And one thing that I wish the editors had done differently is that they let me know what to expect. They were just telling me what was in front of me. Like, okay, now you do this, and now you do this, and now you do this. Instead of saying, first we're going to do this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and this, and explain the whole process. So I had no idea of, you know, how the whole process worked until like the first book was published.
Right.
Then I saw the whole process for myself, because changes in the storyboard, the memo, then changes in the inks, things that were approved on the memo were changed in the inks, and then the whole manga gets published, and before it gets published, changes on the whole first volume.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Perfection. They look at not perfection, because obviously perfection is impossible, but they try to make the manga as good as it can be. And I thought, okay, this is a weekly magazine. I'll just send something. They're going to say yes, because we don't have time to do anything. I couldn't have been more wrong. That doesn't matter to them. This needs to be changed. This can be better. So here it is. You make it better. And if it's that's why people, I think, get sick or just burn out. It's because, you know, it's a constant pursuit of you know, trying to make things better. Eventually, things became a lot easier now. Where I'm doing chapter 87. So a lot less. I mean, I got a lot better, obviously, because this was my first published comic. Really, it's just going from no manga or comic published at all in my life as a penciler to 60 pages a month, right? So now I'm better, and changes are not so many, and they know me, and I know them. And sometimes I just don't draw things that I know are going to get asked to be changed. So the fact that we know each other that well makes the whole process.
Now, what kind of changes? I'm interested. What kind of changes are they talking about? Like drawing changes, pacing changes, layout changes?
When this is a one of the big difference in the way American and Japanese work is that the script, when I say script, is not a text. They send everything in storyboard format. Like I get a PDF with the divisions already, and like a very basic drawing of whatever is going to happen in the text. So I get like a manga that can be read in a very, very rough stage. And I have to draw that. I can make changes. I can make even big changes like this. In this chapter, I make in a very, very climatic change. I basically changed the whole killing scene. I don't want to say anything, but I wanted to do spoilers, but I changed the way it was. And I had to ask the editor to ask the writer, is this okay with you? And he said, yes, it's actually better. So let's do that. But the basic flow of the thing, it's already given to me. So the changes are all about readability. The obsession of Morning, the magazine I work for, is that the manga is so easy to read, so understandable, that the reader never gets out of the story because has to think like, what's happening here? Where from this panel, where do I go now? That never happens. If you read a Morning magazine, there's almost never like diagonals. Like everything is very classic storytelling, very classic, like, square rectangles, things like that. You go to, I don't know, Shonen Jump, all kinds of wacky layouts, and just because that's the demographic. Shonen Jump is for for young kids, teenagers. Morning Magazine is young adults, 30-something-year-old guys. It's our demographic, I think, and so we don't need to be flashy. We just need to tell them a quality story, the best story we can, and make it easy to understand. So changes, face expressions. It has to be really clear, the expression or what the character is thinking or feeling at the time. It's all about storytelling. They don't tell me anything about art style. They just at the beginning, they told me don't draw like hyper realistic, don't draw too cartoony. Once we agreed in the style, that was it. Which is they let me go with it. Yeah, like in the middle. That's like no, they don't let me do like the style of the manga. It is very defined by the tone of the story. So it's not like I can make many choices really. Like we just found it, but together, but it had to be the right choice of style for the tone of the story that we're doing. And many of the changes is this guy's supposed to be doing this, and we don't see, I don't know, the hand doing this. That's important because two pages later, with this hand, the guy's going to do this, and you have to know before. Like it's all about the story. It has to, the reader has to know clearly what's going on. Also, it's basically things about the storytelling, making clear that everything is read fine, and then but there's a lot of that. It's just, I'm not saying like sometimes I smile. Right. I don't know. This smile doesn't feel like whatever the text is saying. Things like that. Also, they want to make sure that because I'm not Japanese, that all the Japanese related things are represented correctly. Like somebody eating with chopsticks. The hands, I've changed countless hands of people because they're really also, Morning is promoting the fact that I'm not Japanese because I'm different. So they're like, oh, you have somebody from outside working for us. At the same time, they're really worried that I will misrepresent something of their culture, right? So yeah, that's the type of changes that I usually do.
I suppose it would be the same way here if you had somebody, eating with a spoon and cutting, or you had him holding it like like a murder weapon or something,
Yeah, and I guess if there is I don't know, like there's a manga that happens in America, let's say, and an American reads it, they go like, we don't do this. We don't talk like this. We don't move like this. We don't dress like this, right? Mm-hmm. So they want to avoid that on the other direction. They want to avoid that Japanese readers read something that I draw and it feels fake to them.
Yes.
Or not accurate. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what I find interesting too is that there were, because Jamar and I have talked about this before, there were, about 20 years ago, there were some Americans who tried and went over and started doing work in Japan. I think like Paul Pope and Felipe Smith, and might have been a couple other people, but it seemed like it didn't take, because one of the things that I find very interesting is that now there's Americans who like manga and Americans who draw manga, but the people prefer the actual manga, not the fake America doing manga, right? So I suppose since they're promoting you, I've also heard, and I don't know whether this is true, but I've heard that the Japanese prefer the Japanese doing as opposed to somebody outside, not Japanese doing it, but maybe now they're changing because the demographics of the reading public is changing.
Well, I'm not sure about what the readers are thinking, or I don't know. It's just dog chasing its tail, I think, because I've talked to my editors about this, and one day my editors asked me, do you think that drawing, like we could publish a manga with the style of American comics and publish it here, like somebody that brings their own flavor, and would the reader accept it? And I said, I don't know, but I think they would, because there's so much variety within, you take, I don't know, One Piece, Ichiro Oda, Taiyo Matsumoto, completely different styles. They're all Japanese, they're all hits here in Japan. So that shows to me that the Japanese reader accepts almost anything. And for me, being from outside, it's been an advantage, clearly. That's, I think, the only reason why I was hired. Like, you imagine, you're an editor, and I go to them, never published a manga in Japan, never published a comic drawn by me in Japan, anywhere, just being an inker. Maybe they didn't understand what an inker was. I don't know. that worked for my advantage. I don't know. And then they took a chance on me. And I think they took a chance on me only because I was probably one of the few ones that went through the hurdles of going through the website, translating the websites, find where to send the work, translating the manga for them, working as an assistant for 2 years, even though I don't speak Japanese. They saw, okay, this guy can get around all the troubles he's going to find working for Japan, right? So I found a way. Like, it's just more work, extra work for me, translating a lot of things and everything, but I found a way. So they say, if we can get this guy to draw for us, we're going to promote it that way. And it worked. Like, I've been on TV twice. They came here. I was like, oh, somebody from outside is drawing. Like, the manga is set in the prefecture of Akita. So NHK, which is like the main national TV from that region, came to see and do an interview with me because they were so curious how a guy from Spain is drawing our environment. Have you ever been there? Like, no, I've never been there. Like, how does that happen? So I explained that what we do is basically research, photos, going to the actual place, take photos, send them to me, and that's the kind of thing that we do. So yeah, we're working in Japan is, I mean, from the editor point of view, I think they want to see it, but they don't want to, like, I don't know, you talk about Mike about Pope, and my thinking is, I don't know if Paul came here and they're like, okay, I'm going to try to do my thing, translate it to Japan as strictly my thing, and I'm going to put it to the Japanese reader. And I think that will not work because the Japanese reader is used to a very specific type of storytelling. Like, you can read, I don't know, I was reading the new Conan the Barbarian with Roberto de la Torre recently. Amazing art, but so static. Like I was reading this manga, and it's like, this is so different. You see a incredible panel of Conan killing people, and it's so like a picture. It's just the guys there posing. That's it, which is, I'm not criticizing this. Like, I wish I drew like him, but you see the same scene in Japan, and everything is speed lines everywhere, and that action will be broken down in maybe 3 pages. Where the build up, like the feet running, the hand with the axe, then the action, and then the blood, and all, that's how they break things down in Japan. And in America, it's just one beautiful, gorgeous, panel. So if Pope came, I'm just giving him as an example, came here to Japan and said, I'm going to do the one beautiful thing, an editor in Japan will go like, this doesn't work for us. This is not how we tell the stories. So it's not so much about the style, it's maybe about the storytelling. In America, the 3-act structure, the Dan Harmon circle, the hero's journey, I don't know, this same structure that everybody uses, this is not what they use here in Japan. In Japan, they use the Kisho Tenketsu, I think it's called, which is a 4-part story structure. And it's different in the American ones in the fact that it doesn't have to have conflict. Like, you read a lot of manga stories and there's nobody antagonizing anybody.
Right.
And it's based on step 3, which is twist, a surprise. And if you read manga, you see that 60-70% of the chapter, usually, they go and there's some kind of surprise that maybe or not, come to terms just because of conflict or not. It's just it's a more free way of telling stories. I think. Like, sometimes you read a manga, an American comic, or watch a movie, and you see, okay, this is the beginning of the movie. You see, this is the hero. It's broken. So it's going to have a journey, and at some point it's going to break down completely. It's going to change and go back to the beginning, but change, right? Like, what's going to happen.
The hero's journey always goes like that. Right?
Japan is crazy like that. Japan doesn't do that. Japan is all about the surprise. And so, I don't know, if you don't know that and you try to write manga here, to the editors, it's going to feel weird. To the readers, are going to feel weird. And also, another thing is our style. To me, what I've tried to do is to draw like a Japanese, basically. Like, I love this style of art. And so I get a kick when people on Twitter are like, oh, these guys, they find out that I'm Spanish. This guy's Spanish. I would have never been able to say by looking at the art. And it's because I try to do my own touch and my own style, but I blend in. Like, you reading a morning magazine, my story doesn't really stand out, my art, from the other ones. It's just, it's mainstream manga, basically. And so, I don't know, there's a lot of things, like, I don't know what happened to the other people. Maybe editors before were not as open as they are now to work with foreigners. Also, I've had offers from other publishers that have seen my work, and it's like, oh, we're really open. Like, there's no good new mangaka to work with anymore. We need new people.
Right.
And so, since there's no good people, not just generalize, it's just generalization. So, but since there's no good people in Japan, we have to go find them overseas. So that's I think what's happening now.
I find that very interesting. Yeah. Go ahead, Jamar.
Oh, okay. Well, we're starting to fill up with questions in the chat. So I was thinking, Steve, maybe can you throw some of Mimi's at Juan?
Yeah, I'd also like to add one that what was it like? You worked as an assistant for a while, but what was it about? Like, is there a feeling of letting go by having other people work on these pages, or did you feel like I got to hold on to the reins pretty tight?
It takes a a certain kind of cartoonist to work in Japan. I think it's drawing manga in Japan, in my experience, is a big exercise in letting go. Like you said, letting go, it's just, that's the big word. Because first of all, it's not my manga, it's our manga. And when I say that, I mean including the editors. Editors are here in Japan, one more creator. It's another creator, part of the team. they give a lot of ideas to the writer about the story. Actually, the main idea, I think, of the manga was from the editor, not the writer. As far as art style or character designs, they give me so many ideas. I almost never have to go from zero. So yeah, that's a big change. And it is impossible. It would be impossible for me to do the manga by myself.
Right. The deadline would be like, well, I need to bring. I gotta let it go. It's 2 months away. Yeah.
Either I don't work in Japan or I let go. That is not my manga. And so I have a long time ago, I checked my ego at the door and said, my goal is to deliver a good story to the readers, not to show up as a mangaka, not that to say to people, this is my work. It's to entertain. Who does what? It's pointless. I get paid to deliver a manga that's interesting. Mm-hmm. And also, my assistants are better than me at drawing backgrounds because they've been doing it for 20 plus years. So the manga is better but because I have these assistants. Doesn't mean that they always do 100% of the time how I want it or how I would do it. No, of course. Sometimes, I don't know. I would draw rocks this way instead of that way.
Right.
But and I think like, oh, this could be better. But more times than not, they would do better than I do. And they surprised me. Like this chapter that we delivered last week, it was in the mountains, like people like climbing like the Everest or something like that in the middle of the snow. Like I was really afraid. Like, okay, I'll draw the guys climbing, but this scene will work only if the assistants can give it a good atmosphere.
Juan, I'll do the snow.
That's the easy part. I'll hire you next time we have a scene like that. So yeah, I just gave it to the guy that I know. This is another point. You have to know your assistants. I gave it to the guy that I know is good with nature. Every time he gets a nature scene, it looks like he explodes, like he gets really excited or something. I don't know. And even the editors that usually don't things like that. It's like, okay, this scene, I don't know what happened here. I was really worried about this one, but this is the best that you guys have done in this chapter. And it's because of the assistant, not because of me. Well, I mean, because I gave it to him too. I'll give myself some credit there. But yeah, you have to let go. But in the end, the manga is better because of my assistants. So
that's beautiful. All right. So question from Mimi Simon on the YouTube. Is the script translated for you?
No.
All right.
No. Here's how it works. And that was my idea, because here's another thing. When we started working together, I realized, or I thought, that if I gave so much work for them, that like if I said, okay, I want the script, but you have to translate it, at some point they're gonna go like, we cannot fit this much work in a weekly magazine. Like, I try to make it as easy on them as possible, because I feel like, okay, they're giving me this unique opportunity. I have to, make it easier on them. If they feel they have to make so many exceptions in their workflow just for me, maybe they give up on the ideas of working with foreigners altogether. Sure. So the way it works is they give me the PDF with and everything, and every speech bubble has a number: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. And then they send me a separate text with all the text in Word in Japanese. Page 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I know what goes there. And so I translate the Word file and I read it that way. That's it. Sometimes if there's like at the beginning, the storyboards were so clear because they were really afraid that I would not understand anything. So they instructed the writer like to clearly draw everything. Now, 80 episodes later, they realize that I understand everything. So the guy's just doing like stick figures sometimes. And whenever there's something is not clear, my editor writes on the PDF, this is this character. Sometimes they do like a stick figure and Y for Yamano, who's the main guy. Meguro, another person, like an M. So they just wrote like stick figure and the initial of the character, that's it. So at the beginning, it was not like that at all. It was almost finished, so it was crazy. So yeah, they don't translate anything for me.
We're going to keep going with Mimi. Thank you for the first question, Mimi. The second question, how do you keep from getting behind while making the changes, I work
all the time. This is a sticking point for me because I'm the guy that will, the way I keep my deadlines, by the way, I haven't missed a single deadline in 86 chapters that I've delivered so far. Really proud of that. Not saying that all the chapters are beautiful or great, but I always do my best. But I set my own daily deadlines. I sit here and I say, until I'm not finished with this, whatever it is, I don't go to bed. I don't get up and go to bed. And I usually set myself an amount of work that's realistically, I can realistically think that I will be able to do, but also not easy. Like I have to make a good chunk of work to keep up with my things. So I have my schedule, and then suddenly I get an email from my editors. Here's the feedback on whatever, the memo, the storyboard. So you have to do it, and you have to do it quickly too, because I cannot take a week to make those changes, because at some point I'm going to finish the previous chapter of Inks, and I'm going to have to start working on the storyboard I also have ready, right? So I cannot start drawing unless it's been completely approved. So I have to stop what I'm doing, do something that really disrupts my rhythm. But at the beginning, it was horrible. I had many crises about this. I didn't sleep for a while. Now it's a lot better. So I know that I've gotten a lot better at focusing. Like I was really scattered brain at the beginning. Like I get distracted easily with a fly, and I would just fly, something bright, something like that. I was not good at concentration. And I think for fear of, I have to draw this now and it's not going to come out as I want it. And that, it's just, you get in this loop that you're doubting yourself, and afraid of this getting into this loop, I will just avoid drawing sometimes, right? But eventually I thought like, okay, just editors like what I'm doing. My readers are reading the manga. It sells well. We're working on Tankobon 10 right now, like the volume 10. So it's okay. I told myself it's okay. So I focus a lot more. I sit to work and work. When it's time to make changes, I try to make it as quick as possible, but keeping the quality of the work.
That's beautiful.
And also the most important thing about keeping with my schedule is accepting the work you're doing. Like today, I'm this good. I cannot be as good as I will be in 3 years. So if this looks 80% or 90% how I would like, it is okay for now, because this is what I can do now. So I don't spend a lot of crazy time redoing things or tweaking, or I drew like a whole character. It's like, no, I almost never do that. So
that's great. All right, thanks, Mimi, for that question. Do we have another one from?
Yeah, we'll run a table with me.
Yeah,
and we'll shift
a hat trick. How did you work with Japanese manga without speaking Japanese? I also think this also specifically with your assistants. I'd be curious about that spin on it.
There's a wonderful website called deepl.com. Deep as in deep, something's really deep. L.com. It's a translation software for free. You can put text in there. It works like Google Translator, but it uses AI, I think. So it's a little bit smarter about how to translate things. So all my communication is written. I never speak to people, obviously, on the phone, even though some people enjoy. And I've lost some jobs because of that. When I was an assistant, I applied for jobs when they realized that I could not speak with them on the phone or Skype. They said, I cannot work with you. I found many editors that liked my work. And it's like, okay, let's have a meeting on Skype. This one shot that I did, a lot of people did. Like, okay, but I do not speak Japanese. It's like, oh, then I cannot work with you. So everybody that liked my work enough as an assistant to be willing to maybe change their workflow, the communication ways a little bit, and just do it through writing, Discord or email, whatever. I work with them. Like most of the time, they just gave me like, okay, let's do a trial. Give me this, you have 5 days. In day 3, I send the work, and it was quality work. It's like, oh, he's sending the work before, and he doesn't ask a single question. He just sends me the work early, hire. I mean, and I think that's basically the most important thing. If you're capable and professional, eventually somebody will give you a chance. The same with Japanese publishers. Like I went through a lot of magazines, mostly all of them, until I found one that said, okay, we're going to give you a chance. And I took it. And with all my struggles and everything that I described before, I never missed a deadline. So they appreciate that.
And you said 86 chapters, and each one of those chapters is 20 pages?
Yes.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks for that question.
Yeah, getting close to the 2,000 mark.
That's beautiful.
Page, I mean.
Well, this ties into what you were just saying. This is a question from YouTube from Gustavo Noves. I would like to ask Juan, if a Western comic artist were interested in working as a mangaka assistant and is able to speak Japanese, how should this person proceed?
I would put together some samples of Japanese backgrounds. Like it doesn't really work if you're sending work that, or you have samples of backgrounds that are like, I don't know, Mike Mignola style backgrounds. You know what I mean?
Sure,
or
sure.
Something like that. That's not going to work. Nobody's going to hire you because that's not what they need here. So if you like manga, Gustavo, if you like manga, you read manga, you know the backgrounds. Look at the backgrounds, what they look like, analyze them. Thin line, a lot of detail, very realistic most of the time. So you need to get that. You need to get a few samples, and then you go to a website called Gammo, Ganmo. That's the big secret. Gammo. Just look that up on Google, and that's the message board for people looking for assistant work. So just two sections there: magazines or people looking for assistance, or assistants looking for work. That's what I did. That's where I went. I posted, I'm looking for a job, for a work, put your email address, this is what I'm looking for. Or you can reply to ads. Like there will be people saying that I'm looking for an assistant, this is the time, or on a regular basis, this is the pay, send samples to this email, whatever. Like it's all in Japanese, by the way. So you have to get used to copy paste or to a translator, or maybe you get like Google Chrome, maybe I think it has a plugin or a feature that says, do you want to translate this? Always say yes.
Right.
But it translates the page. It's not perfect, but it's good enough.
That's great.
I mean, it's good. Like, and that's my life for the last 5 years, basically. Translating everything. And
so your job is to get a job is to make them hiring you easy.
Exactly. The fact that your work is so good, your samples are so good that they are willing to go like, oh, but communication, but look at this work. I need these for backgrounds in my manga, because competition here is so fierce. Like you go to a bookstore and it's like, oh, where's my manga? Like you see 20,000 Spy Family books, 20,000 One Piece books, 20,000 Oshinoko books. And then you go and you see your book there in the corner, like, oh my God, my ego. You know, it's just like there in the corner. It's a bit of a miracle that people actually look for your work. And so if somebody, by the way, this is my manga. This is.
Well, hold on. Let's give you the screen. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
This is the number one. First Tanko one would release. This is 8, the last one.
Oh,
are these volumes available in English?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm begging Kodansha US to translate it. It is in Japanese, Spanish, and Thai, in Thailand too.
Oh, and Juan, I would love to ask you about the cover process and where does that fit into your workflow? Like, is that last? Because sometimes it seems to be the last thing they do with covers, or is that the first thing?
Usually fits into my sleeping hours. No, when like there's 9 chapters in every volume, right? For me, and so usually we draw the 9 chapters for the magazine. They get published. When there's enough published for a volume, we start doing the work for the volume, and that involves doing covers, because there's one cover. I'm lucky enough that I have to draw 2. By the way, show this 46 life second. It's conveniently covered by this, but
Oh, I see.
but anyway, there's 2 covers, like here too. This and this, and it's usually, as you see, is the same pose. This is the real life person, This is about, it's a manga about video games. This is the video game character that they use.
Very cool.
I'll tell the story now, the plot anyway.
Yeah.
And so we finished the 9 chapters, and a little bit later it's like, okay, it's time to start working on the volume, the tankobon they call it here. So they give me ideas for the 2 covers, and at the same time I have to keep drawing the manga. That's the extra 3 weeks, 1 free. That's what the free week is. It's not for resting. My last day off was in June.
Wow.
I've had 7 days a week since June, and before that probably another 6 months. So you get a sketch, you send it to the editors. When you send the sketch, you keep working on the manga. Then you get feedback. Okay, do the line work, and I do the colors. So I eventually do the colors. Sometimes if the background, like in this case, I did everything myself, like 100% of it, like the background. So there's a building here. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I don't have time. Like in this case, I ask an assistant to do the line work for the forest. But the colors is 100% me for all of them.
And
so,
are you using like a giant Copic set, or what?
No, this is Studio Paint.
Oh, you're coloring a clip, man. All right. I don't know. I don't know when my brain just shut off.
No. I would love. They asked me to emulate some kind of watercolor if I could. Watercolor. They give me some examples, so I do my best to do that. But I have to, like, I would love to draw on paper. Like, the reason why I send those brushes to Mike is because I'm obsessed with trying to get some analog feeling out of digital work. But it's impossible. It would be impossible for me. Like, I would be slow, and also my assistants are like scattered around Japan, so it doesn't make sense. I would not have a complete page to show, so it doesn't really make sense. So.
I'm sorry, Mike, and then I'll leave you alone. One of the things that I was thinking about is like the kind of like the manga cover looks so marker rendered. You know what I mean? It kind of just like I said, my brain just kind of stopped working when you said you were doing it in clip, and also the fact that graphically things is called Manga Studio first. It's a Japanese program that then they've translated to the States and then flipped it back. Yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I remember that one night we group watched that thing on the manga.
Oh, Man Bin, right?
Man-bin.
Yeah, they had like 7 or 8 people in the studio, and somebody's scrubbing out Zipatone, and somebody's drawing in a background, and somebody's inking the background, and you've got like somebody going to get food, and you've got all this. So in order for you to produce this, it would almost sounds like it would be impossible, even if everybody was in one room, to be able to do it as fast, because like if you're using photos for backgrounds, you just pop the photo in, go right over it. You don't have to draw it and then ink it. You can ink over the photograph.
Right. That happens sometimes because it's like, to me, my main concern is how assistants can go as fast as possible. But there are sometimes a picture, like right now, because this is video games and it's about a game of a. Let me tell the story of the whole manga. Manga is about this guy. It's an old man, Matagi. It's a hunter. And he is a very grumpy old man living in rural Japan. He's the first page of the manga is actually him, the funeral of his wife. So he retired, his wife died, and he has nothing to do. And one day, this is all chapter 1, by the way. One day he's going through the mountains and he finds an illegal appliance dump, like people go throw their microwaves and these things. And somebody dumped a PlayStation 2. Video game console that we don't give a brand. So he picks it up and takes it home for no apparent reason. And there's a game inside, a shooting game. So because he has nothing else to do, he starts playing the video game and realizes that all his Matagi hunter knowledge about killing bears in the woods applied to the video game. So he spends the next year just working, doing nothing else, and he becomes like a mythically good video game player. Also very mysterious, because usually people talk with headphones and everything on the games, but he's obviously an old man. He doesn't know that people can use video. He doesn't even know internet, really. So in the video game, he's a very mysterious, quiet samurai. That this guy over here, this is the video game, the character that he is, and he's become like this mysterious, silent character in the video game that's killing everybody. So that's the beginning of the story. And then there's another character from Tokyo that wants to become a professional esports gamer. And he's like, oh, I need to team up with this guy. So she goes, it's a girl, and she goes and tries to find this old man. So these two worlds, rural Japan, modern video game world, just collide that way. So that's the beginning of the story. Eventually, of course, he starts playing. He doesn't really want to, but he gets convinced to play and everything. And he goes to a video game tournament. So eventually, the video game tournament is being played in America. So now the current story is happening in America. So for my assistants, going back to the previous point, my assistants that have never been in America, I think it is very important to have photos, either to trace or just to reference.
Right.
It's not always trace. Like a photo will not. We use photos 10% of the time, I think, because they never match the point that you want. I don't compose a shot based on a photography. I compose a shot that's better, and then try to find a photo that works. And if it doesn't work, like if you don't know how to draw nature from scratch, if you don't know perspective, you cannot be my assistant, because I need that so many times, And so, yeah, it's just that's what we do. I do not have like the studio thing. Like the man band actually happens still with A, people that work on paper, and B, people that make a lot of money. Like we sell okay, but you have to think. You have to rent a place. You have to feed those people. You have to, buy supplies. It's a lot of work. So with coronavirus especially, a lot of assistants in mangaka started working remotely. So, that's what I'm doing. I just go to the cloud, and I now have 2 assistants in Tokyo, one in Hokkaido, which is the farthest point of Japan north away from me, where I am now. So that's the way it works. Like it is lonely, obviously. Like I would love to have a team of people here and talk about manga all day and everything, but they speak Japanese, which is another problem. So really, what's the point?
How's your? You're picking up the language? How are you?
I study. Like I take classes with a personal sensei, personal teacher, every 2 weeks. But I don't have enough time to study. Like Japanese turned out to be less difficult than I thought as far as understanding. It's like I thought that would be I would be completely lost. I would never understand. But maybe because I learned English before, and I, tackled learning a new set of grammar and everything. Japanese is really different. The difficult part is the kanji and the writing. That's the different. It's a lot of memorizing. So I don't have time for that. That's the problem. But when I'm talking to the teacher and I go out to a restaurant or something, and the basics, I do know the basics. Like I can introduce myself. I can say I'm okay, I'm not okay. Give me a beer. Just enough to get in trouble. Basically.
Where is the police station?
Right. Where's the police station? Give me a beer. Where's the police station? After
too many beers.
Where's the toilet? Juan, I have a couple questions, and then I would love for Steve to get some more questions before we run out of time. One of the things is, speaking about just kind of like the culture shock of being a mangaka in this country, is also the fact that you're telling stories in reverse, right? I mean, just like your layout of a page is just totally reversed like it is in the States. So you're working from right to left instead of left to right. And even though I've read manga for a while, I still get confused trying to read my way through a page when everything's flipped. You know what I mean? So like, was that a learning curve for you, trying to even do layouts?
I don't think it was for me, because I read so much manga over the years.
Okay.
Actually, the opposite happens to me. What's happening to me now is that I I was reading Conan the Barbarian the other day, and I started reading right to left. Like something's not making. American comics. But as far as drawing, I don't know. I never felt like I got confused or made a mistake that way. And actually now I feel that it's a natural way for me to think how to compose a page. Maybe if I try to write, which I haven't done in 5 years, try to draw something our way, the Western way, left to right, maybe I'll get a little confused. But in the end, I think our layouts are so basic, so simple. Like, I don't know, I'll give you. I don't know, this is very basic. Like there's all squares, just nothing.
It's all the grid. Everything's a grid, right? It's all
it's a grid. Like there's no diagonal. The storytelling is very, very, very simple. It's nothing. Sometimes, like here, there's right to left, but sometimes it's just panels like this, like 2 big panels like that. So you have to draw pigs and.
So how many assistants would be working on a page like that?
It all depends. I try to. It's not about how many assistants. It's about who does what, depending on how good they are at something. So if there's no one chapter that has only one scene. Like sometimes we see the people in the real world, and sometimes we see like all these monkeys and pigs and things. That's the video game action, right? So I try to distribute the work based on that. Like if somebody's going to draw the hunter guy going through the woods doing something, I try to give all that scene to one guy. Why? Because I don't want, like, even though the style is similar and all that, I don't want the woods or the trees to look in one page totally different than the next one, just because 2 different people did it. Also, like I said, this one guy that I have is really good at nature. This other guy is really good at destruction, let's say. So whenever somebody shot something and it hits a building and the building goes, blows into pieces, like this other guy is much better than the first guy. So that's how I distribute things. So usually one guy per page. But sometimes you see playing video game play screen, and then you see the actual guy in the real world doing something in the same page. So sometimes I distribute changing, like, okay, panel 1, 2, one assistant, panel 3, another assistant. So that's how I distribute things.
So like one is like better at drawing cars, one is better at drawing trees, one is better at drawing explosions.
Also, I asked them at the beginning, what are you good at? What are you really not good at? Some guy told me, I'm horrible at drawing food. It's like, okay, I'll never give you, unless I really have to, I'll never give you food. I have this one girl in Hokkaido. She's good at, like, she sent me samples of her own manga. Like she's trying to be a mangaka too. So her figure work is good. So if I have to draw, like, I don't know, people walking in the background, sometimes, most of the time I do it myself. Like I try to keep all the people do it by myself. But sometimes deadlines are deadlines. So I have to let it go, like we talked about before. So I know that if I need an assistant to draw people, she is the one that's going to do it.
So if you have a crowd scene, you can do the principals, they can do the background people.
Exactly. Things like that. And it's all about time. Like another thing that I do is, see if I have an example here. This is a good example. This is the swimsuit issue, somebody called on Twitter. These tones here, the fabric tones, I usually add that myself too. Like the screen tone is something that assistants would do. Like in this case, the sky.
Right.
The sky, assistant did. But if there's some screen tone like that, like it's part of fabric jeans, something like that, like a flannel shirt, like in this case. You see this here?
Mm-hmm.
All these kinds of tones I do, because not only I think it adds to the texture and the flavor of the manga, and I like to make those decisions. Also, I'm not rich. I cannot just go and say all the assistants do everything for me. Also, I have because I'm a Westerner, I have some kind of the ego part that we talked about. Like you have to let it go, but I'm still thinking this is my manga. I have to put in it as much as I can, given the deadlines that I have, given the time that I have to do it. Right. So I don't know. Also, when there's a lot of action, it takes a long time. Like I do all the speed lines. That's another thing that assistants usually do in Japan. All these things, like all these speed lines and everything like that.
Right.
Because I do a lot of like blurry effects and try to keep it like really dynamic. So at the beginning, I went to the assistants and went like, do this, do that, and they didn't quite do it as I wanted to. So at some point I decided, okay, this is something that I'm always going to do. So, so yeah, I try to keep add my my touch to most everything I can. But of course, it's impossible to draw.
Yeah. Well, you know that's the thing that because I have had assistants over the year. So I still have an assistant now, and there are some things that the master, let's say, has to do because no one else, it's too much of your thing. A tree can sort of be generic, a background, a car, no one's going to sort of criticize that, but sometimes there's certain things that you can't even really figure out until you do it. So for you to explain that to somebody, plus with you have the language barrier, it would be more difficult. Like when I trained my assistants initially, they were right here. They were right behind me, right? So I could draw something, I could give something, they could go work, they could come back. Right here, you could say, no, you know. Now I do the same thing. I work with Liang, or if I work with Mimi, I work with them remotely. But because we had those years of working together before COVID, they understand. And I also think that I find it interesting that there's an industry, a big part of the industry, that it's assistance, which is not an American mindset, because the American mindset is like, I'm going to be the boss. Right. I'm going to be the top dog, not that I'm going to be somebody's assistants. But my friends, the Villagrán brothers from South America, they had assistants that were their assistants for 20, more than 20 years. And they were just, they did the backgrounds, and they weren't trying to necessarily, not all of them, some, but some of them were just happy to do the backgrounds. Like, Yeah,
that happened. Like in that Man Ben show that you talked about, in some of the cases, they introduced some of the assistants. It's like, I've been working with this mangaka. It was a girl that's been working for 15 years, like from the beginning. My whole career as an assistant has been working with her. So, and also the difference in my case and your case, like you're talking about bringing somebody in and training them. Unfortunately, I would love to just spend time with somebody and training them and teaching how to do what I want to do. I cannot afford that. Like it happens here. Like there's some places where you can have like the people that actually have a room where people get together, and mangaka that have many, like maybe 10 assistants, they can afford to have one or two. There are newbies that come in, know nothing. I'm going to teach you and train you exactly how I want you to do things. And they start with the ruler, doing lines, and the G-pen, doing lines. And I cannot afford that for time and for money. So I don't train anybody. They have to come train to me. Otherwise, I just don't hire them. So yeah, anytime that I've had to look for an assistant or something like that, show me your samples. That's what I want. And then if they can deliver the work on time, which so far my assistants never failed me, knock on wood, but never failed me in 85, 86 chapters. That's it. That's all I need. Like 2 of my 3 assistants, I have them from the beginning. Like I have no reason to change. And the other one, after my Spanish friend decided to work on itself, I just got her, and she's been with me from the beginning to me from that time too. No reason to change. When I send them instructions, I don't need to explain many things, because the reference, okay, this location appeared 20 chapters ago. Look at it. Like they probably drew them themselves. You know, it's not that I have to give them picture reference or anything. Just
Right.
go back, look at chapter 30. You drew this. Just refresh your memory and draw it again. So that makes things so much easier for me.
So how does it feel to be in that system compared to how it was when you were working in the American system? Because it seems to me like everybody's attitude is really kind of different.
Well, first of all, here everybody accepts the assistant system. It is known. It's on TV. It's not like, oh, I have somebody that does my work and I have to hide it. And it's like, there's none of that. It is accepted that manga is done by a team of people, that there's a orchestra director directing everything at the top, basically. But and that draws mainly the the characters, and crazy people like me draws speed lines too, which most people don't do. But everybody knows how it's made, and it's accepted and it's encouraged. And the publisher is telling me, okay, you need 3. I'm going to help you find some people. Like, it's just, it's great. And it's great that I have the support of 3 people to meet my deadlines. And sometimes somebody gets sick. I get sick. Can you do this for me? Can you help me with that? Sometimes my assistants get sick. Like recently this year, the one of the parents of the assistant passed away. He asked me, I cannot work for a week or for 2 weeks or for a month. Can you help me out with that? So we support each other as much as we can. And the American system is a little bit more lonely because I was an inker and I was teaming up with pencilers in a long-term basis, but it's still you're not part of a team so much. Like you're in your home, they do their work, they don't talk to you about their work, they give you your work, you do your work by yourself, send it to the editors. It's more like an assembly line system. Here the actual page is like we're all in there. Like we have, even from a very basic standpoint, like I make my characters, they make everything has to look like one thing together. Like not like 2 people did or 3 people did that. It has to be one person did. It has to look that way. So yeah, it feels like more like of a collaboration than the American system, really.
I think another interesting part of that, especially in the States, is that people, and I guess I'll call it ego. I don't know a better way to say this, of the American cartoonist is like, well, I don't need anybody else touching my work. Or, you know what I mean? Or it's kind of
I've heard that a lot. Yeah.
Precious.
There's a singular vision. It's very precious. And, I don't want anybody else's hands on my work.
And there's nothing wrong with that. If I could do everything myself, I would do it. But my freaking editors want me to deliver 20 pages every week. So it's impossible. It's just a different system. And also, like, you have people like, I don't know, people that work in France. They give them, I did as an inker 1 album for the French market. Mm-hmm. And it was 60 pages. They gave us 1 year. So that's the timeline that they deal with. Of course, one person can do everything. And of course, you take a lot of pride, and nobody is going to touch, because it's my child, it's my book, it's my everything, right? Here, I'm in the middle. I'm in mainstream manga, and this is a machine of making entertainment. And I don't want this to me to diminish what we do. Like a friend of mine talked about manga as fast food. And I kind of disagree, but I agree at the same time, because it is made as fast food. But at the same time, how is it possible that the best sold comic in the history of the world, which is One Piece, by the way, is made as fast food? If something connects with that many people, can we talk about it really in that kind of pejorative way? I don't think so. And also, they asked me, like my editors in America, for working for DC, they asked me for, in 7 years, the same amount of changes that my editors in Japan asked me in half of the first chapter. What I mean by that is the care Japan puts into delivering a good product. It's unheard of, in my opinion. Like, I've never worked in any field that people that care so much about making a good product for their readers. So yeah, we work really fast, and we're fast food, but I completely disagree. I kind of disagree with that. And the ego part, yeah, Americans, not Americans, the American system in French manga is more about like, this is my work and nobody touches it. It's okay. Japan is more about, let's deliver a good product for the reader on a weekly basis, because people like manga here so much that they cannot get enough manga. That's another thing. In America and France and Europe, people don't need comics that much. It's just like, okay, I'll just get the Batman book every month and everything like that, and they're happy with that. I mean, there's a core group of people that are actually hardcore about it, which I'm one of them. But here, my wife reads manga. My in-laws read manga. Like, everybody that I know, it's like, are you an otaku, like a nerd? It's like, no. It's like, what's your favorite manga? Oh, when I was a kid, I read that. It's like, oh, you are. Like, just the thing is, everybody reads manga here. That's the thing, So that's, I think, why the manga industry developed into what it is now, a machine of making manga constantly, because people buy it. People get rich out of it. Like, companies and mangaka make so much money. If you get a hit, you can be one of the richest people in Japan, I think. I don't know. It's just like people like Eiichiro Oda that have One Piece, Netflix shows. I don't know how many hundreds of millions of manga sold. That's an insane amount of money, So, of course, they want to deliver because there's people buying, I don't know if you went to America and made so much manga. I don't think sales would increase that much. You know what I mean? Like, the readership is not there, I think. Right. So, but here it is. Here, like, you go to a bookstore, and half of it is manga everywhere you go. And there's people of all ages. You go to a train, people are with the cell phone reading manga everywhere. Like, when at least in Spain, you go just reading the sports newspaper website or whatever. In here, everybody's reading manga. See, people by themselves, like, this is, I love when I see this. Go to a ramen shop and you see somebody, like a salaryman, like an office worker, in their lunch break, eating by himself a bowl of ramen with the phone here, reading manga. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, we get paid for that too. I mean, like, if somebody reads, it doesn't matter if it's a book, if it's a magazine, if it's a digital copy of it through Amazon or other vendor, we get paid for everything.
So do you feel that the publishers in Japan are fair with paying the creators because they realize that without them, then their business would melt?
Yes and no. How do I explain this? This is a difficult. I mean, it's not that a complicated answer, but the system, I think, nobody explained this to me. This is the way I figure it out. Like, the way that I see it is that it's set up in a different way than, like, in American comics. It's all about the page rate. Right. Like, DC, Marvel have royalties, but it's a little bit murky. Like, do we get royalties from overseas, from digital content? Like, it's the time I worked there, I never got a definite answer about, for instance, digital royalties. I don't think I got any, by the way, but I don't know. But the fact that I don't know is just a sign that something is not completely, clear. Here, page rates are, in my opinion, horrible. Like, I get paid less for one page in Japan than I got paid for one page as an inker in America. But I did 20 pages in 6 weeks, more or less. Here, I do 60 pages in a month. So obviously, just for that, I make more money, just because we produce a lot. Now, in the other side, I pay my assistants from that page rate, right? Which that's an expense that I didn't have in America. I still make more money than when I, was as an anchor in America, a month, so to speak. But then these come out, and this is where the money is, really. And that's the difference. Like, page rates are set up for you to survive, so to speak, and pay the assistants. And the real money is made on these because a lot of people buy these in book format and in digital. Also, if there's like my manga has been translated and licensed in Spain, I get paid for that. Thailand, I get paid for that. Times that I was in TV, there was one TV show that my manga, the MATAGI GUNNER, was recommended, and it's like, oh, by the way, the mangaka is from Spain, and they showed a picture of me. They paid me for that. I wasn't even there. They paid me to show my picture.
Wow.
Yeah. Recently, I told you, NHK came, did an interview for me, and of course, they show the manga. That's kind of like a license to show the manga on TV. They had to pay, so I got my part of that. There's going to be, it's been announced. I announced it on Twitter a few days ago, and it'll be. I cannot give you a lot of details, but it'll be announced or published in the magazine in a few weeks, 2-3 weeks. But a video game screen computer monitors company is kind of doing like a collaboration with us. Is printing their characters in is releasing a line of MATAGI GUNNER video game monitors. So it's using our characters for the video game product that they release. Of course, I get paid for that. I get to approve everything, and I see all the context. And so in that sense, the mangaka gets so much respect. Our work never gets used, and we don't get paid for it. Which, of course, in Marvel, they can do movies and make billions. And
whatever they want.
The creators of those characters don't get a dime. And some of them do, but it's not,
dimes.
Yeah, dimes. Exactly.
Dimes. You're getting dimes.
Here, whenever we started our relationship with Kodansha, there's a contract that says for any third-party related use of your characters, you're going to get this much of the money that it's made. So it's all set up in advance. There's no guessing about what's going to happen. So, I just, in that sense, where I feel much more respected here from the industry, but also from the people. Like when I go to a restaurant and, oh, where are you from? Like, oh, I'm from Spain. What do you do? I'm a mangaka. Like, oui? Come here, take a picture with me. Like, what do you do? Like, it's in Spain, I was like, oh, do they really do this? I think computers did comics these days. That's the answer I got there. And here, you're treated as a celebrity, really. And even if they don't know my manga, it's not that it's like, oh, you do One Piece? Like, no. It's like, you don't know, but you're mangaka. That's a very respected profession here.
I do Two Piece.
Two Piece.
I do Two Piece
That's the sequel.
Two Piece of the biscuit. Juan, before we run out of time, I want to try to get in the last round of questions. And this is because, Juan, you watch the show. You know how we do things around here.
Yeah. The lightning round.
There's a lightning round.
Okay.
So I would love if you could keep your answers pretty brief. Steve, have at it.
All right. We're going to tear through these. You're good with deadlines. So let's start with Ignite over on YouTube. Asks, how do you manage your personal life with this mangaka lifestyle full of work?
Personal life? What is that? Next one. No, easy. One afternoon a week. Saturday afternoons, usually. Personal life. That's it.
Tim Fielder on Facebook. How important are ergonomics in your studio?
I just need a good chair. Also, one thing that I do that is not work is I go to the gym 4 times a week. Because if I don't go to the gym and lift some weights and run a little bit, my back starts to hurt. I'm good with my routine with working out, my body's perfect. Also, I sleep 7 hours a day. So I never do all-nighters. I don't do crazy things with sleeping. I work all day, but I sleep every day the same amount of hours.
That's great.
So, ergonomics, not so important, aside from the chair, but working out and eating healthy and sleeping, that's better for me.
Keeping the machine in operation.
And I take it your wife probably helps with that too, right? Like helps you balance things like eating good and things like that.
Yeah, she is. I like to eat too much, so she's good with keeping like the portions rational. It's like, you need to go to the doctor to get the blood checked out and everything. So if it was up to me, I'll be sitting here eating pizza all day and enjoying manga. That's horrible for me, because I've done it before and it was not good. So yeah, she helps me with, staying straight, and because I know in the end it's better for me. I feel better. Whenever we go and do a trip somewhere, it's horrible to just walk for 2 hours somewhere and it's just like, I'm done. Like I cannot do anything now. I like to stay in shape, and whenever I have free time, at least I get to enjoy it too.
That's great. Thanks for the question, Tim. Christopher Lopez on YouTube. Are there any American comics being read by Japanese fans? If so, which ones?
I'd say on a regular basis, I'd say no. Like you can go to, and my only cue for this is you can go to a bookstore. Like the bookstore I go to is the biggest in the city here where I live. And they have like 5, 6, 7, like huge aisles of manga, all kinds of manga, old manga, new manga. One wall of One Piece always. It's just like that, kind of like that. And then you go, there's one shelf, like no bigger than this one, with American manga, American comics translated to Japanese. And you see your Batman Dark Knight, your Flashpoint, your events, some also Japanese, like, European, like Berlin, The Bomb by, I don't know, Dennis something, I don't remember the name, but they take some things translated to Japanese, but I never seen anybody buy anything like that. It's just, I never. On the other hand, I know, well, people are a fan of the characters of the movies. I came here when I was an inker of Justice League, and I got such a huge reaction, and they came for me to sign not comics, but flyers of the movie. Like, can you sign this for me? And it's not my comic, like, where are you? And it's a flyer that they took when they went to see the Justice League movie. So they're fans of the characters, but they read Japanese manga. I mean, there must be exceptions, of course, but for the most part, I think that's the norm.
Great. We got a couple here. Let's see which ones we can squeeze into under the wire. Daniel on YouTube. Have you met any other foreigners working in Japan, or have you met any Japanese artists working in the Western markets? Peach Momoka and Sana Takeda come to mind.
As far as Japanese people working there, Peach Momoko is the one that came to mind. I think Takeda, of course, but I don't know of any. And like, they don't need to go outside. Right. They have a whole business here. Like, why? Right. Like, I don't know. And also, unless you really like the characters, and unless you artistically, you need to go outside because the way, or you want to escape the crazy deadline system that they have here, then yeah, maybe some people go. But no. As far as foreigners working here, there are a few. Like, I know there's a Spanish guy, Kenny Reith, a friend of mine. He did 5 tankobons the last 2-3 years. It's being published in America, by the way. It's called Team Phoenix, and it was a really cool project. The Osamu Tezuka legacy team, I think his son actually hired him to do like a kind of Avengers kind of thing, like take all the Tezuka characters and do like some adventures with them, put them together and do some kind of adventures with them. So he did 5 tankobons. It ended already. I know of, I think, an Italian guy, Max something. They're publishing in afternoon or evening magazines. Mine is morning, so it's evening or afternoon. I don't know which ones, but they're also Kodansha magazines, and it's a monthly magazine. So I think they're doing something there. And I know there's been also, Felipe Smith, you talked about it before. He published in Morning many years ago. He actually lived here. And another one, there's a new manga called No/Name. I think it's 2 creators from Finland, and it's being published in an app digitally. So there's a few people, and I think publishers are now more willing to take work. But I think, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think I have the longest run for a foreign mangaka working in Japan.
That's great. And I think we got 2 last ones in here. We're gonna Ignite on YouTube again. We're making a silent horror action one shot with a writer. We want to show it to Japanese editors. What editorial department do you recommend we reach out to? Who's open to foreigners?
Show it to everybody. Who cares who's open to foreigners? Show it to everybody. That's
that website you mentioned, Gamma?
Ganmo is for to find assistants.
Find assistance. Okay.
So my suggestion is this. Here's the quick. This is not go. Well, I'll try to make it quick. Go to Google and type list of Japanese manga magazines, and it will take you to a Wikipedia page with a list of all the magazines. It's just that easy. It's just people don't do the work. I'm sorry. Just don't want to be mean, but just go to Google. Google is your friend. A list of manga magazines being published right now. Click on every magazine. Go to their websites, and find every website where the tab for delivering. That's what I did. It's just not rocket scientist or anything. You just need to go and do that. So also, if you do that, go to the website. Every website gives you a very quick impression of what kind of work they publish. You like horror, Junji Ito, where does he publish? That's a sign, go to wherever magazines publish your favorite horror manga magazines. I'm not a huge horror manga fan or reader, so it's not that I don't want to give you the magazines, just I really don't know. But I think anybody, like Morning published a horror manga recently, so I think any magazine is open to anything, foreigner or not, if it is good. So to the viewer watching, just finish it, translate it to Japanese, and do the work to find all the magazines. Send it to everybody, because even if somebody doesn't want to take your particular one shot that you took, maybe they like the art or the writing and they want to start something new with you. So
yeah, open the door. That's great. Ignite, thanks for the question and good luck. And our last question, bringing it home, Tim Fielder on Facebook. Naive question, perhaps, that may have already been answered. How does an outsider get into the manga industry? I like this one because it kind of brings it maybe ties it all together.
You have to try. No, it's just it's a very simple question, but I asked one of the mangaka that I worked for when I was an assistant. It's like, what do you think? He said, honestly, I have no idea, but you have to try. Like, that's the only way you're going to know, is you're going to try. About how? Go to the previous questions. You write a one shot. That's what everybody does. Write your own story, 30 to 40 pages, translate it to Japanese, get to the websites and send it to the publishers. Somebody will answer. But if you want to say, like, I don't know, like an easy, quick answer, like Gummo, for assistance, go to this website. Everybody's here. Like, no, the manga is not so much like that. Also, cons, the con system doesn't work here. It's not like you can go to Tokyo Comic Con and there's going to be Sueisha, Kodansha, Shogakukan, all there waiting and reviewing portfolios. They don't do that because they're too busy releasing weekly manga series. So
there's no Japanese Stan Lee waiting to.
Well, that's the thing. If you speak Japanese, every website have the phone number. Call the editorial department. That's what people do here. But because of language barriers, I never did this. Call and say, I want an appointment. And they will say, Monday at our office in Tokyo at 12 p.m., 12 a.m., 12 p.m. Meet me there. And you go there with your manga, and an editor will come down from the office and will review your manga. And if they like it, they will go, bring me more, or I'm going to show this to my boss and see if we can do something with this. But because we cannot go, obviously, to Tokyo and do this kind of thing, what you have to do is go to the websites, and most everybody accepts now work online.
Would it benefit you to have a translator? Do you have a translator ever go with you to meetings, or can you hire a translator?
I don't need one because my editor speaks English and Spanish and a little bit of English. But if not, yeah. But I don't know if, like, I remember the first meetings that I had two editors. One of them, the one that speaks Spanish, the other one doesn't. So now my meetings are only with the one that speaks Spanish. The first meetings were with both, really slow meetings with the translation going on. And so I think if you're good enough, if your work is good enough, again, their editorial will get around their own, will be willing to do the extra work, I think. And if you don't speak anything and you have no other choice than to speak to people live, meaning like on Skype or something like we were doing now, or maybe a translator. You can hire a translator. Yeah, that's a good. That wouldn't be a. But I would do it like a last resort. Like you may find somebody that speaks English. Like very few people speak English here, but you may find somebody that speaks English or somebody that is okay. Let's do it on writing. It's okay.
I love that.
Let's do it through email, not just face to face. But that's not common, I think.
Guys, we did it. We have talked for 2 hours straight.
I told you I talked too much.
No, this is you know what, we've bridged the gap, we've crossed the streams, we've done all of those things to bring you fresh content from across the world.
Right.
It's been really fantastic talking to you.
Yeah. I just find it so unique and fascinating because I don't know of another person who's done what you've done and been so successful, and so despite you working hard and grinding yourself, you're still very enthusiastic, which I think must be the key.
It's a privilege, really. Like it's not lost on me the fact that I'm one of the few people that's doing what they're doing, and I'm, I think, the one that's lasting the longest so far. Right? Eventually, this will change. Like Japan will open, more people will come, and somebody will last longer than me, I think. But it is not lost on me that I'm doing something a little bit different, and that I should enjoy it. And also, you catch me at my break when I'm the happiest. But last night I was not as happy. No, but you know what I mean. Like I love making manga, of course. And when I was a kid, I was like, I read Akira, and I was like, oh. I blew my mind. I would love to make something like that in Japan, but of course, impossible. Japan is so far away, 30 years ago. Now the technology has bridged, that's closed all these distances so much that it's possible. I'm still wake up some days and it blows my mind that I'm doing what I'm doing. Like I get, I don't have it yet, but yeah, I get one of the magazines. In this case, there's not a chapter here. I get the comms. And I get to do this, and I'm in there. Absolutely blows my mind. Or when I get one of these, and I get my, typical comments of the author here at the back. That's very typical. But I used to read the tankobons when I was a kid, and I read about the private lives or whatever the author was thinking by reading these comments. And now it's me making the comments. So those little things, they still blow my mind.
That's
fantastic.
All right, guys, we got to wrap it up. Juan, it's been fantastic. We have
Thank
to have
you so
back,
much.
Juan. Thank you so much.
Been great. A lot of fun.
Next time we'll do our thing at 8 a.m. and it'll be 9 p.m.
Yeah, we'll reverse it.
Yeah, we'll flip it. We'll have eggs and bacon while you're getting ready for bed.
Now what I'm going to do now is go to the gym. So I'm energized and everything. So go to the gym and then work in the afternoon until, I don't know, whenever I finish my deadline that I set up for myself. So that's my everyday, really.
Well, Juan, thank you so much. Mike, thank you for making this happen. What a fantastic.
Well, thank him, because I just asked,
Yeah, this is great. And it's just like, and this topic is so fresh because it's always on the minds of people in the States. It's like, oh, how do you break through this wall? And what a fantastic lens you put on it. Thank you so much, Juan, for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
We've been sharing your Instagram all night. Do you have any other places you like people to follow your work?
Instagram, I share, I'm not very active on social media. I just usually post what's when a new chapter comes out. Like a new chapter came out today, so I'll post some, a little sample of the chapter, and this came out. Instagram on the stories, I post work in progress some of the time. So if somebody wants to see like a little bit of the process, you can do it they can see it there. And there in Twitter, Juan Albarran 75, and then Facebook, they can find me there too. I have a website, juanalbarranart.com. They get some it's not a lot of their information, but they can see some of the covers, and they can links to all the books and what's published in Spain, in America, in Japan, and everything. So Yeah, they can find me everywhere. My name is strange enough or different enough that if they Google it, they probably find me instead
They'll
of something.
find you. That's awesome. I have that problem. There's a lot of Jamar Nicholas
Yes.
out in the world. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much. What a fantastic episode. Usually we end the show with Kirby hands, but for our special guest, I think we should do some Tezuka fists. How do you feel about that?
How does that work? How does that work?
Ooh.
100,000 horsepower. Thank you, guys.
Johnny Taco Fist.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Guys, thanks so much. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.